I'm Courtney and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the hidden costs involved with building your own home that no one likes to talk about. So let's get stuck into it, but before we do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you'd like to see more videos just like this one. Okay, so the first item that I never knew about when I was building my own home is all the extra financial fees that get tacked onto everything. So the fees that I'm talking about are your account setting up fees, your conveyancing fees, your PEXA fees, registration fees, you might have some estate guideline fees, conveyancing, council rates. All these things add up and they can cost you a significant amount. So it's good to have a little bit of buffer in your budget for those extra fees you might not see coming. For us in our particular scenario, we ended up paying $7,891.15 in just those extra fees alone. So don't forget to add some buffer in your budget for them. The next thing I want to talk to you about is your lender's mortgage insurance. Now this LMI insurance is something the bank actually takes out, and it's to insure them against the chance of you not paying your loan. It's actually to make sure that they don't wear a cost if you are unable to satisfy the loan and make those repayments. So this LMI insurance is an awful waste of money and can very easily be avoided. So I don't want you to have to think about paying that as well. There are a few ways to get out of it, and the best and first one that I definitely recommend is by saving a 20% deposit. Now, if you save up your full 20% deposit, this insurance doesn't even count. It doesn't matter. It gets thrown out the window and you never have to think about it. And the insurance in our particular scenario would have cost around $20,000 to $30,000, maybe even a little over that as well. So it's a huge chunk of money to think about paying. The way that we got out of it in our particular instance was by having guarantors. Now this isn't always an option for everyone, but it was a great option in our instance and something that I'm so thankful we were able to use. So that might be another way for you to get out of that LMI. Otherwise, make sure you save up that 20% deposit. Another item on my list that you might not know about is the cost of utilities if you don't have them at your block. So if you don't have things like water at your block, or gas at your block, those extra little costs might add up. So it's really important to be aware of what you have and what you're going to be using. When it comes to things like water, your builder's going to need water to build your home. They need water to make the mortar, to put the bricks up. They need water to do so many things. And my stepdad, who built his own home, didn't have water at his block when he did. And they ended up having to buy a water tank, buy a pump, and truck water up there all the time, so the builders could keep building the house. So this is something you might want to factor into your numbers as well. Another item on that particular list of utilities is things like your natural gas. If you have natural gas at your house, great, then they'll need to connect that up for you. But if you don't, you might need to factor in things like having LPG running and using that to run your appliances if you're going to have gas appliances. Otherwise, just having electric appliances might be the way to go for you too, but it's something that you might want to factor into your budget. The next item on the list is the accessibility of your block and the location of it. So if your accessibility is pretty bad, so you've got a narrow driveway where it's very difficult to get items on and off the actual block of land, maybe it's a battle axe block, something like that, you might need to factor in the cost of double handling. The trucks that are used to get the items onto your site are normally pretty big. And if you have bad access, they can't use those standard trucks. So there might be double handling charges to get those items onto smaller trucks and broken down and assembled on site just so they can get to your building. So keep that in mind as well if your block is a difficult one. Another one to keep an eye out for is rural blocks. If you are further out from metro areas or out of town where there aren't many tradies, then it is going to cost the builder extra money to have their trades drive to your site to construct your home. And that cost is going to be passed on to you as well. So be aware if you are buying something a little bit further out from the usual area that most people are building in, because it might incur a cost for you as well. Another one to be aware of is your BAL rating. So if you have a bushfire rating in your area, that can cost you, even for the lowest bushfire rating, which is a 12.5, anywhere from $4,500 to $6,000 depending on the size of the home and what's needed to protect it in that kind of bushfire rating. But bushfire ratings go up much higher than that, so there can definitely be more costs associated in it. It's something you should be aware of, And if your block has a BAL rating, you want to find out what those costs are. In a similar manner, if your block has flood affected areas where you're going to be building the home, that's really important to know. And if your block's exposed to something like the beach, which isn't too far away, if you have salt water in your air, then that is something that's going to change the build as well and have cost associated with it too. The next one is site costs. So every builder is going to have their own site costs, and they vary dependent on the builder and the block of land. But with site costs, one of the best rules of thumb is the flatter the block, the better. The flatter the block, the cheaper the block is to get a building on there. It requires less cut and fill, and you want to avoid things like having to put in retaining walls or adding drop edge beams into your slab itself, or even putting things like splits and steps in your home to counteract those blocks are a little bit slopier. So the flatter your block is, the less of those items you ever need to worry about, and the much easier and cheaper it'll be for you too. So try and get a nice flat block. Variations are another big one that you might not see coming. When you're building your own home, there's definitely a point in time that your builder will turn around and say to you, this is the day that you can no longer make any changes. From this point onwards, any changes you make will have a cost associated with them. This means that the builder more than likely is put your plans in for reporting or for final drawing with their teams. And if you start making changes, that means they need to redo so many items. So it's going to cost them, and then they pass that on to you. For my particular builder, the cost with making a change after this point in time was $1,000 plus whatever the change was. So if I wanted to go ahead and give myself a wider front door, for instance, I would have to pay the $1,000 to make the change, and then the extra cost required to do the extra structure or the bigger front door, whatever was required for that particular change. So it adds up very quickly. In saying that though, my builder was very good at telling me when the cutoffs were for those changes, and I made sure that I didn't make any changes after that point in time, and that I was really happy with my decisions thus far. If you don't think you're confident in what you've done so far, take a moment to check everything before you proceed past those points, because you don't want to be slapped with any of those variation fees. And thank goodness during our build, I didn't get hit with any of those fees because we were very decisive and stuck to our guns once we made the decisions. The next item you might not know about is BASICs. Now this is your Building Sustainability Index, and it is critical in New South Wales. Your home actually cannot begin construction until you meet a certain level of requirements of both water and energy efficiency. So your builder should make sure they keep that in mind as well. My particular builder always puts a buffer in their budgets to allow for BASICs if changes are required. And they did some extra things to make sure I was going to meet those standards. They increased the quality of insulation. They upgraded certain taps and plumbing in the home so that I meet that as well. The estate that I also build in has a recycled water plant, which really helped with the BASICs rating too. So there are certain things that you might want to keep in mind for that. The great thing was that even though my builder had put a contingency amount in the budget for BASICs, because we didn't end up using it, I just got it directly back as a credit. The next item you might not see coming is your upgrades. So this is a big one that catches a lot of people off guard. The main reason I think it gets most people off guard is because they don't understand what's included as a standard with their particular builder, and a lot of the builders don't have a good range included as standard. So when you're looking at your builders, make sure you understand what is a standard inclusion in the home, and make sure you understand within those standard inclusions what kind of options you have. With my builder, for instance, we had to choose from a pretty good variety of items. When we chose things like our garage door, we had the entire range of ColourBond colors to select from, every single color we could ever want, which was really nice. And again, with things like our floor tiles, we had 8 options, and they were a really good variety, something for everyone, and they were really good quality, so I didn't have a problem picking from those standard ranges in those instances. A lot of other things around the home too, like our paint colors and things like that, I just picked from the standard range. There are a few items though that I definitely did choose to upgrade. One of the big ticket items that I chose to upgrade was our carpet. The standard inclusions did have a pretty good range to pick from, but I had kind of set in my heart that I wanted a silvery gray color carpet, and there wasn't a silvery gray color in those standard inclusions. And I'm not surprised it wasn't, because it's not a typical option. but I found one in another range up from that they were still able to offer me, and I just asked them what that particular carpet would cost to put through the home. They let me know a few days later the cost of that particular upgrade, and me and my partner were happy to go ahead and have that added into the house. We were so happy we did, and I definitely wouldn't take it back, but I'm happy I'd set aside some extra money to allow for those upgrades. The best way to track these as well is by having just a big running Excel spreadsheet. I had everything in an Excel spreadsheet. Down the bottom I had what I knew I could spend, our total budget, and then as I was adding items in, I could see how much I had left to spend. I also kept in my mind a few items in there that I knew were wants not needs that I could swap out if the time arose that I needed to kind of swap that out for something else I wanted. So that's really good to keep in mind as well. I've also got another video on this exact topic of upgrades, and it's the upgrades I reckon are worth your money. So make sure you go and check that one out. I'll link it up above here for you now too, and I'll link it down in the description box below. Okay, the last hidden cost I want to talk to you about is landscaping and those final finishing touches like window coverings. Don't forget to leave a little bit of money extra in your budget to pay for those final touches to finish your home. You don't want to move into your home and leave the outside of it looking like a mud pit for the next 12 months because you didn't leave any wiggle room in there to finish the home. You want to leave money in there for things like your driveway, your fencing, your grass, maybe some plants, if you want to do a deck or feature stone, anything like that you need to leave money in there for, as well as simple items like window coverings. When we first moved in the home, I'd completely forgotten about window coverings, and that was a little bit more of a chunk of money that we needed to then figure out where it was going to come from so that we could have the windows properly treated in the house. Again, I do have 2 more videos related to this that might help you. I have a full external house tour of this house. I've got an internal house tour as well, so I'll link both those videos down below. But the other one that would be really handy for you too is the 10 items to do after construction. And that'll help you create a little list of things you might not want to forget. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this video has helped relieve some of that stress about the hidden costs of building your own home. If you have any questions that I can help you with, please leave them down in the comments below. I always answer every single question down there, so don't be shy. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos just like this one. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.